All right, everybody, welcome back to another fabulous episode of the Over Sharon Show. Again, we have a returning guest today, but before we get into that, we're going to do our normal little thing, and I'm going to say, hey, what's up, chat? Thank you guys so much for hanging out tonight and chatting with us. Even if you're not in here yet, I'm sure we'll get some more people soon into the chat. I don't know if they missed the beginning of it or not. So anyway, we're giving a little shout out to you guys. You guys are so awesome. And I've also been doing, if you haven't seen, I've been doing live streams for my Brandon Bonanza show. We usually do them Monday or Tuesday nights or both nights. So check those out because I have some really interesting guests coming up. By the time you've seen this, I would have had Woodshop Bear on and Austin Awesome, from the Melodome. Awesome Austin. Isn't it Austin Awesome?
No.
Oh, well, that's what I put on the thing. You're Austin Awesome now. Or whatever I put. I can't remember. It's like Pocket Aces. I get excited when I see his name, the two big A's. I also had my friend comedian Rodney Norman on, who does a character called Leonard McCrunsky, which he's like YouTube or well, I guess he's pretty big on YouTube, famous. But he's like TikTok famous. He's got like, I don't know, 1 million or whatever it is.
Holy smokes.
Of people. He's got a ton of people on there too. And he just basically has this way to distill truth down and present it in a really silly way. And I love it. And a lot of people are big fans of his. So it's great. He said that in the show, he's saying that they're working on getting him a TED Talk. And I'm like, that's amazing because everybody else is talking about despair and all this silly science on TED Talks, allegedly. But like they'll let his character on there and just basically smash victim consciousness.
Dude.
You know, he's like an undercover agent getting on there. Like, because you know, unlike Owen, he has an agent now because he got so famous on TikTok and he is hilarious. So he's been doing comedy for years so he can go out to a club and do comedy. So he's been getting a lot of people to come out. He has an agent and they're talking about all this stuff like TED Talk. So I'm like, dude, that's great.
Whoa, dude.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Anywho, I got a quote here. So let me pull it up. And today's quote is from Soren Kierkegaard. When I opened my eyes and saw the real world, I began to laugh and I haven't stopped since.
That's you, B.
That's what I feel. Yeah, that's why when you sent this to me, I'm like, yep.
That's why I sent it to you.
Yeah, it's awesome. All right, I'll bring it down. I'm like, when I was recording with Rodney, I left the quote up for a while. I totally forgot it was up. That's all right, though.
Yeah, I think I noticed that.
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do? I got a card.
It was a good
I got a card for y'all.
All right, what you got?
Let's see, what do we got? The Two of Swords.
Ooh, that card keeps coming up.
Air, you know, mental processes.
Hang on, keep it there. I'll make your screen big. Let's see if I could do this. Oh, that's me.
Do you want me to turn it landscape this time again?
All right, so I'm going to pin you. No, not putting waiting room. Here we go. Whoop. It's the Over Sharon show, guys. It's fine. Here we go. There we go. Pin Sharon. All right, I like this card because it reminds me of like a new idea that you get and you're planting in the soil and it's growing and you're getting some benefits and yields from it. Also, two different kind of swords. You see two different handles there. So it's like two different ideas. And it also kind of has that feeling of like burying the hatchet. So formally, you think of like two swords, you're going to go to war. So if it's either two ideas or two different people with ideas, instead of going to war with it, they just plant them next to each other because like when we talk about in division in that episode 11 and 11 and how many, you know, ways there are for people to get divided. This is different. It's saying that, yeah, we don't have exactly the same ideas, but we're going to plant them next to each other and we're going to make this field grow. So I like that.
And doesn't like, I don't know, did we ever say that twos sometimes represent like a choice?
Yep.
Sometimes as well.
Yeah, a lot of times in the other, like the Rider Waite, it looks like it could maybe be some kind of decision or two different conflicting ideas. But the way that it's portrayed in that picture, I think it's more of a, you know, it could represent a decision and you're kind of at peace with the decision that you have to make, you're making a compromise instead of going hardcore one way or another. I'm just eating grapes, everybody.
Nice. Well, we have a guest today, a returning guest named Joe P., our friend who lives in Germany. And we wanted to bring him back on and just have a chit chat. We have some thoughts on what we're going to talk about, but we might go somewhere else. We don't know. We're just going to have fun. What do y'all think?
Yeah. What do you think about that card, Joe?
Put me on the spot now, huh?
Yeah.
Well, first off, thanks for having me back. I enjoyed the last talk we had, and yeah, so let's do it. And as for the card, yeah, sorry, refresh my memory. My memory is pretty short. It's goldfish.
Two of Swords.
Two of Swords.
Yeah, two contradicting dots. The swords being the intellect, like as in a dot. So it's I've always looked at the twos and like the minor tarot, yeah, as duality, and the swords being dots, the air element, and I see there's probably two conflicting dots or two conflicting dot processes. That's usually how I see the Two of Swords, but
really cool.
Awesome. Also, I wanted to let everybody know that if they're not familiar with from last time when you were on, the picture that you're showing is from you inside the Great Pyramid at Giza. It's a picture of you.
Yeah, that was a interesting time. Definitely, it was an experience. We'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you went on a trip recently, not quite all the way to Egypt, but maybe part way there. Why don't you tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah. I just got back from Greece, 2 weeks ago. I was visiting the famous olive tree bear, aka Alex. So yeah, my woman and I, we went down there for 10 days and we got to hang out with him in Kalamata on the beach. And then he took us for like a tour of Athens, and we just had a great time. And this was the first meetup I've ever had with somebody that I only knew from the internet. So I was talking to him for like 2 years, and I finally got to meet him face to face, and he's such a great guy. He's yeah, I really miss him.
Oh man.
We
need to have him back on soon. I know he's so busy, that guy.
He's been like MIA.
yeah, he's out about again, busy, wrapped up in his work. So
yeah.
He did pop in the chat though when we did that live stream. If you haven't seen it, it's episode 29.11. We did it on the 11th day of September. And we did it live.
Do
you remember? That was just yesterday.
11th day of September. Just kidding.
The 21st of September, well, as recording this, was yesterday. So it was Earth, Wind, and Fire Day, I guess. Hopefully we don't get a lot of fire. And today's 9/22/2022. How synchronistic. Ooh. And it's episode number 33.
Yes.
Should be anyway, unless, something else comes up. But
true.
So I think that, the fact that we didn't plan that, it was episode 33 with Joe, and there's 3 of us, and we talk about a lot of different
esoteric concepts.
Yeah, esoteric ideas. I think that it's pretty synchronistic.
Apropos and synchronistic.
It's pretty synchronistic, guys. What do you think?
Oh my gosh. Who did that accent? That sounds like a Saturday Night Live one. Did Dana Carvey do that one?
I think so. Also, Adam Sandler used to do it too. He did a guy that was like that. Like, the acoustics in the dumpster were phenomenal.
Oh my God, that's terrible.
Yeah. So we had a guy that I worked at a car dealership with that had a minor lisp. And of course, we're all savages. So I would just cut into it all the time. And I kind of made my own character with it. So I would just be like, "Hi, I'm Sal Salvatore of Sarasota, Mississippi." I was just looking for all the words I could find with the most S's. And whenever I talked in that character, I would just try to use
All the
all
S
words
words.
purposely with S's in them instead of not. Yeah. It was
Terrible.
stupendous.
I knew a guy in the army that actually did talk like that. No, 100% same as the character you're just doing.
Oh my gosh.
He would be on CQ. I don't know if you had that in the Marine Corps as well at the barracks where you have like at the entrance of the barracks, there's always an NCO and a private that are on the desk to, just in case there's an emergency during the middle of the night or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, so we had this one guy, Sims. He used to talk like that. I can't even do it, but yeah, he would. They had the master key to all the rooms in the barracks. So this fucking guy would come into your room in the middle of the night. You'd be rubbing your leg like what the fuck? Get the fuck out of here, dude! Like just nonsensical. But yeah, I used to talk like that, so we used to make fun of Sims.
Hi, I'm Sergeant Sims.
Oh God.
That's crazy. Well, we were something that Joe said to me recently, and it kind of ties in with the date of the last episode we did. We'll talk very cryptically. We'll just say, people have a part-time job at 7-Eleven, and then in my favorite movie was The Two Towers by, my favorite Lord of the Rings movie, not book, but my movie was The Two Towers. So there's all kinds of different conjecture. Was it thermite, or was it like explosives, or was it jet fuel? And some people think there's some kind of directed energy weapon like Tesla tech, which, it's funny because technically it would be a directed energy weapon. If what Joe was discussing about it, but Joe had said something to me saying that he thinks it was consciousness that was the ultimate destroyer of those things in New York City, because of the way that they went down and just like the dustification. So I just was wondering if you would like to kind of elaborate on what you think that would look like. And again, we're all just oversharing here. We all have our own opinions and kind of ideas, but some of us, because of what we've seen and read and heard about, especially in some of the ancient texts, and also because of how we think this realm works through manifestation and different things like that, and how I've talked about before, how I think we live in a spiritual realm. And, if you look at yourself, even if you zoom in on your own hand, you're not going to see anything solid. You're just going to keep seeing basically energy, like molecules or atoms or whatever they are, electrons just dancing around. So if that is the case, then I think it's possible that something like this could happen. So anyway, what do you think?
Yeah,
can I interject just before he starts?
Please.
I just want to say, also use the word demolition, because that was also something that was potentially proposed. I don't know if that's still a thought process going on, but yeah, Joe, please take it home.
Yeah, there's tons of conspiracy theories for that. Now, I guess at the end of the day, we're never going to know. So for this one, Brent, if you want to put on your allegedly hat, I'm just going to throw my 2 cents, my theory in there. So, all right. Basically, everything is consciousness. That's, if you want, forget about the whole globe earth, flat earth, all that kind of nonsense. It's consciousness at the end of the day. Fact, without consciousness, it doesn't exist. That's the first rule of hermetics. There's mentalism. It's consciousness, and
the universe is mental. All is mind. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Nothing, vibration, rhythm. Nothing happens without consciousness. And basically, we are all the window into this realm. We are witnessing this realm because we're all vibrating to it. I'm sure everybody's heard of things in the New Age, like the law of attraction and stuff like that, or just another way to put it, white magic. Basically, as everybody in this community has probably already experienced, like synchronicity and stuff, that's kind of how different patterns, you're recognizing different patterns playing out in this vibration of consciousness. And that's how you recognize things like synchronicity. Now you can create synchronicity through quote unquote magic, whether the white, gray, or black variants of it is basically all the same concept as you're putting a certain vibration into the metaphysical aspects of consciousness, and then as time plays out and the sky clock plays out, things come into physical manifestation. On the day of 9/11, one thing I've learned is that there was billions of people watching this event live. You got to figure this is the first time in recorded history that something like this has ever been televised. The second biggest thing that I understand for like at least in a short period of time just happened with the quote unquote Queen's funeral the other day. Or we
could talk about that after. And I just want to interject really quickly. Also, the Challenger space shuttle exploding. Mm-hmm. That was one of those too, because I know in my school, at least, they wheeled in a TV that I didn't even know existed. I was like in third grade. This was like, what, 87? No, when did that happen? 86 or something? I was like in third or fourth grade. And other people that I've talked to, like a friend of mine from Rhode Island, and even Owen Benjamin has said this, and a bunch of other people have confirmed that they brought a TV into the classroom for everyone to watch it. And I think, was it you that was telling me that you were watching it outside?
Yep. No, that's with the 9/11 event. Yeah, I don't think I was born when the Challenger, that was like the mid 80s, but I think, the 9/11, that's where I was going with that.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm just going to disappear
Someone else
really
said
quick.
that, Brandon.
What's that?
Someone else told us that. And I can't, maybe it was Adam.
Maybe it was. Somebody said that they went outside because they lived in Florida and they went out and kind of watched the.
Oh yeah, what's his name? Gardner.
Gavin?
He was just on BB's.
It was Christopher Gardner. Oh yeah,
I just listened to his thing a couple of days ago. Yeah, that you sent me. He was talking about that. Yeah,
our future friend Christopher Gardner. Actually, Sharon met him at the Bear Fest.
Yeah, I met him at Bear Fest.
God, he's such a cool dude. Like out of all the people I've ever listened to online, I say Christopher Gardner I vibe with more than anyone else. Like he gets it. He gets it.
Yeah, he totally does. Keep going. I'm just gonna run in there and turn the buzzer off in the dryer, which is gonna probably go off soon, but I can hear you. So go ahead.
All right. So yeah, like as Brandon was just saying, what they did with the Challenger, they did to us. I was in the 8th grade at the time, and they wheeled in a TV right after the first plane hit. And it makes begs the question, why the fuck did they want to wheel it in? Because a plane hit. They didn't even know it was a terrorist attack or anything. They didn't even know it was a plane, and they're speculating it might have been a plane, but they thought it was an accident, blah, blah, blah. But
That's
so yeah,
suspicious.
Yeah, isn't it? I've always found that a little weird. So they wheeled in.
When the first one hit, everyone thought it was an accident, but then when the second one hit, everybody was like, "Oh shit, this is not an accident anymore." Because I mean, I was 25 at the time, and I remember it pretty clearly. My mom called me and was like, "Put the TV on," and I was like, "Oh wow," because it was my day off, and I was sleeping. It's like not 8:30 in the morning or whatever. So she calls me, so I put it on, and then all of a sudden, another plane comes, and that's when we were all like, "Oh, this is not just some kind of accident." But I'm sorry.
I was sleeping too. Just quickly, I was sleeping too, and I had like news radio on that would wake me up. So like it would just like alarm. The alarm was just like it would wake me up to that, and then I just heard stuff right while I'm half asleep, and I'm like dreaming that planes are crashing into buildings, and I'm like. I wake up and I'm like, it's freaking, that's why I'm dreaming that. Cause I'm just hearing it right now. It's so weird.
Wow. That's crazy.
And then the rest of the day cause I worked at ASU on campus, and they were playing that like all day.
Oh, they played the crap out of that. And there was some stuff that they played and reports that they made that they never addressed again. Like they said that and I remember hearing this live. They arrested some people on the George Washington Bridge with bombs. And then you never hear about it again.
Yeah.
Yeah. I got tons of stories like that, man. We'll get to that later a little bit.
Go ahead.
And Mandela effects yeah. But so they wheel in this fucking thing, man. And we watched it live. The second one hit, and at that point, you're like, okay, obviously it's not a coincidence. Obviously it's not an accident, you know. But we watched it live. The second one crashed into the thing because they wheeled in one of those TVs, and every class that was going on, with the exception of gym class, had one of those TVs wheeled in. And yeah, I never got to see them collapse because the bell rang and I went to gym class, and you know, got dressed and whatever the fuck we did that day, played basketball, whatever. And my mom came and checked us out of school, and took us home because my dad thought that the revolution has started, and the U.S. government is being attacked. So he didn't want to.
New York City, right? Did you say that? I'm sorry.
No, I was in Florida when
you were in Florida. Okay.
Yeah. However, I had relatives that were in Manhattan that day, and all of whom swear there was a plane, and saw planes from what they thought was planes, or probably was planes, to be honest. But yeah, so they brought in the fucking TV, and I didn't get to see it collapse, but a lot of later when I was talking to, like, when I joined the army, for instance, because, you know, all the guys are like my age, maybe a couple of years younger, maybe a couple of years older, but pretty much everyone coming into, and, you know, coming through boot camp, and you're coming up with as privates, we're all around the same age group roughly. And talking to them about this, they all had the exact same experience all over the country, where the TV was turned on. I mean, granted, on the West Coast, they didn't see it, I guess, live. They would, but they would replay it. So they're making all these kids watch the shit, and then they were watching the live stuff of the coverage of after they collapsed and all that. But the point being is, everybody was watching this live, even in the schools, and not to mention everyone tuned in onto the you know, their own television sets at home or at work or whatever. And I thought it was extremely weird. I never really thought too much of it. And so after I studied like Magick later on, and basically what I kind of think happened, well, it's very obvious that 9/11 was a black magic ritual. I mean, I don't think, regardless of what everybody's conspiracy theory is, we all kind of agree on that, don't we? Like, it was a black magic kind of ritual.
I can even say really quickly to interject, but like, even if it was exactly what they said it was, mainstream, why would people show it to all these children? You can at least agree that that's a trauma bonding
technique.
Yeah, technique, or a trauma bonding incident, or whatever it was, just like the Challenger, right? I mean, you can argue, well, they didn't know the Challenger was going to explode, but you already know that the towers are hit, you know. So yeah, anyway, go ahead. Just that fact alone is pretty creepy. You could make the argument that that's a ritual, black magic ritual itself right there.
Yeah, and they would also show the thing of what George Bush sitting in that classroom with kids again, and talking about steal, you know, burn, whatever the fuck they were chanting. And yeah, playing that live as well. And yeah, so even fucking George W. probably himself has no idea what the fuck's going on. You could tell that the look in his eyes, he doesn't know what the fuck's going on. That dude didn't even know where he was half the time, probably. Yeah, just like wheeling him around. But
oh, just really quickly on that, I don't know, because I went to some deep rabbit holes back in my day, but I don't think that guy GWB was the moron that they portrayed him to be. Like,
no, he was very articulate when he was governor.
And then afterwards, too, he went on like Jimmy Kimmel and stuff, and he was really funny and witty. And I'm like, that was the same guy that was in the White House. But yeah, anyway, go ahead.
No,
I know what you're saying. No, I don't.
It's an act.
Yeah. But again, he could still have no idea what was going on, because he's just like, okay, like I'm supposed to sit here,
being told what to do.
Yeah. So yeah, they're doing this 9/11, you know, even 911. It's the emergency call number. it's everything about it is very occult, and you know, I personally think it was part of the script of this lifetime that we're all living through, like this era that we're living through. I think a large part of it is a script that cannot be changed to a degree. We can change ourselves to where we are in the script, but the script itself is playing out by the sky clock. But so yeah, there's this 9/11 fucking ritual going on. Probably most of it was just set up by the reality itself, as Matt likes to put it, from Quantum of Conscience. It's the reality itself, and there are probably people conscious of this, like, no doubt, about what's going to go on. Obviously, there's got to be people in the intelligence agencies that had an inkling of what's going on. Maybe not the whole thing, but their compartment for sure. And yeah, and it's just, and then to think of it like this: even if they did, all these teachers wheeled in all these television sets to everybody, they weren't consciously in on it. They were not getting orders to do that. Like, something much bigger than we can wrap our heads around, something much trippier was going on. And they all wheeled all these television sets in, and they more or less, from what I can understand, used our consciousness to collapse those buildings. They literally turned them into dust. That's why everybody's like, yeah, the energy weapons, blah, blah, blah. I don't think it's a weapon. I think we were the quote unquote weapon, because how black magic basically works is, and this is actually, if you understand how black magic works, you can kind of have compassion for people, because the only reason black magic works is because they tap into that love vibration that we're all connected to through God. And what a black magician does is he pretty much puts the template into that consciousness and uses that consciousness to bring forth the manifestation. And the opposite would be like white magic, which is what the hippies pretty much do. The New Agers do with the law of attraction stuff, is they put in the same idea, but they put it into their own consciousness, and they work on the higher vibration you have, the you could say the more likelihood that it'll manifest. And when you get to a point where you're in these enlightened states, like some of these like Indian gurus or saints, for example, they're such at a high vibration that things happen almost instantaneously sometimes, where it looks like paranormal things are happening, that you can't wrap your head around. But enough of even though most of the population is not of that consciousness collectively, there's you get 1 billion people like watching something, and you put something in there, you can also manifest it. Or so basically what I see is that they turn the towers into ash using our own consciousness to bring it forth. And then they always talk about like what was it, Building 7, is it? Yeah, the one where they say, oh, he said pull it, blah, but he said it collapsed. Oh, CNN or BBC or whatever reported it collapsed. Well, if you reported it collapsed and there's billions of fucking people watching, and theoretically it's going to turn to ash. Now you have to take my word for it. I come to this conclusion because of, and I'd say I'm pretty 90% sure this is what happened. I don't want to say I'm 100% because I don't fucking know at the end of the day. But from my understanding of how things work and watching it happen when I was messing around with this stuff, and I'm thinking of such a large scale kind of event that there's so much thing aligned with the sky clock and on and on and on, that if this idea like, the Building 7 collapsed, just because everyone's watching it, boom, it turns to dust. Like, and they find all this stuff laying around, and they say, oh, see, they're making fun of us, they're mocking us. I don't think so. I think if you turned some shit to ash, and Christopher Gardner kind of was talking about this as well with BB on his show, whatever, the most recent episode, is certain things are not of that frequency. So not everything would have fucking just turned to ash. It sounds crazy to me, but maybe there was a fucking passport in there. You know what I mean? Probably not, but in that specific example, but like finding it like an inflated tire, like Matt always likes to talk about. If this was a paranormal kind of event and everything turned to ash and everyone, like literally everything was dustified, there could have been like certain parts of that vibration that were not dustified, so to speak. So you look around and you see all this like shit, and you're like, how could this possibly have happened? But then again, do you really think there was like massive amounts of government fucking people running around sticking inflated tires everywhere? Like that makes no sense to me either. Like no one's going to notice that. Like, but
yeah, it could have been planted in the building even beforehand because they knew the way that this works. And I think Christopher Gardner and Owen were talking about toilets because they're made of porcelain, how they found a lot of toilets there that didn't get affected at all for some reason.
Weird.
It's kind of like the same thing when you delete files from like your computer, right? You have all these little fragments that are around. I mean, I'm not really a computer guy, so I don't really understand it completely, but sometimes like when I'm working on my music projects in the DAW, you delete something and then you have to go and magnify certain areas because these little fragments get left behind. And I see it very similar to our what might have happened, to be honest. And so I could totally see like an inflated tire and stuff like that, but that it gets fucking crazier because there's a lot of paranormal things that surround that day for me personally. Like, we'll see if we could get you this episode kicked off of fucking YouTube. But, for instance, my uncle, who is now a Freemason, he wasn't back then, as far as I know. He said he joined in 2010 or whatever, but, he was on Ellis Island that day, like from 6 a.m, 5 a.m, or some shit. Like he used to work on Ellis Island at the time. So he got like claims he saw even the first plane come in and hit, and they were all watching it from Ellis Island. And he claimed on that day, like talking to my grandmother and my mother and such and such, that the FBI had turned Ellis Island into a morgue, and there any bodies or body parts they were finding in the rubble, they were bringing them over to Ellis Island and laying them out. Like we do the same kind of thing in the military if the thing kind of presents up, if that event kind of comes about, is you designate an area and you collect the bodies so you can later identify them and stuff like that. And they're bringing all these bodies over to Ellis Island, and no one on Ellis Island was allowed to leave. Like they were stuck there for some days after the event before they were debriefed and sent on their merry way. Wow. Was what he was claiming at the time, at least. And he also was claiming that there was rumors, talking to people that there were 20 planes unaccounted for that day, not just those 4 that the mainstream talks about. And they were also, the military was blowing up boats in the Hudson River, like blowing them up. Like if they would get on the radio and identify yourself, and if they didn't identify themselves, they were gone. Boom. There was all kinds of military jets flying up and down the eastern seaboard at the time, all over New York City, even down in Florida, because my father was trying to drive home, and he was down in like Jacksonville at the time, and he was saying there's like planes flying, like fighter jets flying all over the place. But anyway, so my uncle was was making all these kind of claims, and the last I talked to my grandmother or my mother about it, they didn't know what the fuck I was talking about. Like I have yet to talk to my uncle himself about it because we're not really in touch. Just we've never been like close, and he doesn't really respond to my phone calls or anything. So, but yeah, all these things that there's all these things that you didn't hear about, like on the news, that like they're covering stuff up. And I even know that from like training with the sheriff's department, like that a lot of things do not make the news. Like there's all kinds of like horrific crimes and stuff like that the cops deal with on a daily basis that never make the news. So when it does make the news, yeah, maybe a journalist got lucky here and there, but usually it's, there's an agenda behind it, or because most of the time they're trying to cover up crime and they're trying to cover up events. And so yeah, a lot of stuff wasn't making the news on that day, and he had told us all this stuff for years. He was telling us about this stuff, and then all of a sudden, everybody just forgets about it. It's like, how would you forget about that? Like
never forget.
To my mother or my grandmother. Like how would you? And then they're like, oh yeah, I vaguely remember something, but then they're like kind of like what's for dinner? And I remember
zombie.
Yeah, I remember this clear as fucking day. He was either lying fucking then, or he's lying now, or there's some paranormal bullshit going on. And mine is on the latter for some reason. I have in my own experience, not only just that, have seen the quote unquote Mandela effect. I've seen it. I know it fucking exists. I know consciousness to a degree is fluid. Like no one can convince me otherwise. It's obvious. And I don't like when people gaslight me and say, "Oh no, it wasn't. You're just remember it correctly." It's like, fuck you, dude. Like, don't gaslight me, motherfucker. Like I can't speak to like, "Oh, day will come" or whatever, because I never even saw that movie, and apparently it changed. So if I saw the movie now, it's already changed. So I don't fucking know. I've never seen the movie. I don't know. All these trivial ones and I really do think the Mandulu is passed along with these trivial examples so that people are like, yeah, that's crazy. That's bullshit. Like, but maybe.
Yeah. I really quickly to cut in, I think the way Owen breaks it down, which is basically like people either misremember because of the media that at the time, like commercials that would say, if you build it, they will come.
Things.
And there's stuff we actually talked about this like last year, I think, on the show.
Yeah, I think it was episode 2.
I'd like to say that last year on the show. But I do agree with you as well, Joe, because I feel like it works the same way. So the realm works just like our brains work, which like a computer works. So some stuff gets deleted, but there's still remnants there. And it's possible your other family members, because of the way that their lives are and trauma and all this stuff, they just don't want to deal with that. So they kind of delete it somehow in their brain, but fragments remain, where somebody like you and me and Sharon, we face this stuff and we actually look for truth because we want to get into it. And again, this isn't a judgment, it's just why some people don't look into truth. And because of the way the realm works, how I always say it's like a spiritual realm, it works similar to a computer, because our brains that are perceiving it are computers. And no matter how woke we think we are or awake to this stuff, we're still connected to the consciousness, just like you said, everything's made of consciousness. So we're still plugged in to that. I guess they call it like the crowd, or what did Freud call it?
Collective?
Yeah, the collective. Yeah. We're still plugged into the collective. So we're going to experience things that happened in the past, just like everybody else does. And we're going to hear about this stuff, and cycles will play out and all this stuff. But I do believe you are correct about the way that things change. I just think it's hard to explain exactly how and nail it down, but there is something to the Mandela. Now you can go and like disprove a bunch of them, but I think that there is something still there to some of them. Like you said, I think these small ones that are thrown out are just to kind of divide people and get people to fight about it, because I don't think there's objectivity is as objective as we really like to think. I do think we all kind of share certain frequencies, and then we claim because we all share that same frequency and we all experience that thing that is objective. But there is no such thing as objectivity 100%. It only goes to a certain level, and it does seem to it can be changed. Like perception is a part of what is brought into reality through one's particular consciousness, if that makes any sense. Yeah, well, like I said before, where some people will forget about some stuff, or what do they call that when somebody totally just forgets about something, what I'm talking about?
Amnesia.
Yeah.
Kind of like amnesia, but the other way, when they just stuff it down. I can't. And then you can have like a get hypnotized. What's that?
Like repression?
Yeah, kind of like repression. I'll think of the exact term probably. But anyway, in that way, and the same thing with like how certain people like, oh, I don't remember your uncle saying that and all this stuff. So their consciousness is hiding that from them. And now, so we think we're like all perfect and we cured everything, but there's still some trauma somehow that affected us. Maybe it's even like an ancestral trauma, like Michael Tessarion talks about. So because of that, there's going to be stuff that we repress and that we don't remember or can misremember. And if it's a societal trauma that everybody is
misremembering, they misremember.
If everyone's experiencing the same maybe past trauma, or maybe it's even the trauma of being in the slave system that we're just not aware of. Because of that, I think our consciousnesses, or the ones, at least on our level, maybe there's some people that got above that, but I think they're going to be affected by that change. So even if something did happen in the past, we could say concretely that there's objectivity because it happened, but because the way we remember things, we'll never be able to exactly pin it down unless it's been like written down and documented. But then who knows what you can even trust, right? So in that way, we
even
can't.
That could change. So
Yeah, this is the point. What I'm trying to say is, like, so say something happens in the past and it's documented and that's really what happened, and now we remember it as something else, and everybody will call you crazy because they're like, for example, right? We'll say the Kool-Aid man, the big pitcher. Hey, like, some people say, well, I'll just making this one up, right? Some people say he's blue. Some people say he's red. These days, you would think he was red. What if he really was blue, right? And it really was like that. But now everybody just remembers him as red because of some kind of trauma that we can't even explain in the past. That part of our brain that knew he was blue, everybody represses it, or most people. So now he was always red. And if you just get rid of all the pictures of when he was blue and replace him with ones when he was red, everyone's going to call you crazy. And in that way, I agree with what you're saying, that humans can't, but the way I'll put it is that I don't think humans can perceive objectivity 100%. And because this realm, I believe, just works all in our consciousness, if it does change now that to everybody thinking it's red, it's possible it goes back and it does change everything to red, the book in your house, all that stuff. Because again, I agree, this isn't a physical experience that we're having. I think we're energy, and I've talked about this, how I think we're energy just experiencing a physical manifestation so we can have free will. But I think that just like a figure eight, we're cycling through the cross. I really think that's what the cross is about. I was talking about this with maybe with Kaylee, I think, the other night. I think that's what the cross, that's why it's so huge, because it represents this material realm. And as we're coming through it, we can have all the experiences. Like I said, we could play around with free will and stuff while we're like this. But when we cycle into the energy, think of the loop of the eight, that's us coming around. We don't have that. We don't have free will. We don't have these things. We're more like a higher or just a different state of consciousness until we come back into that cross again on the other side and experience the physical again. But because of that, because I think we're all energy and all this stuff, I think that's how things actually do change. Because you think you have a book or a DVD that's like in your closet that's always been the same. That's energy. You could provably zoom in with a microscope and show that it's energy. So exactly. If our consciousness does affect that, then sure, the Kool-Aid guy could have been blue back then, but now everyone perceives it as red because of that, and the way our memories and everything work and everything create, it just changes everything to red. And some people, for some reason, will still have that memory. They're just like the outliers. Like when you try to erase something and there's fragments left, they're that fragment. What do you think?
Yeah, totally. I totally agree with whatever you just said.
Yeah, exactly. You got to go back and listen, but it's very nuanced because everybody wants to think something's black or white. There is a Mandela, there is no Mandela, and people just want to fight about it and both call each other idiots, right? It's like, what if you're both right? The way I explained it, you both have a point.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, is it's like people can intuitively feel the truth, so they're always clinging on to a little bit of truth. That's why I think, I don't remember if I said it in a comment or I said it recently, though, probably to you guys, because you're like the only ones I listen to, really. So, yeah. What was the comment?
Truth.
Yeah. Truth. Yeah, truth is.
There's always like a small truth in. You were going to say something about
because
this.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the truth is, like, everybody can truth, love, light, all one and the same to me. If you look at nonlinear and you're not playing like semantical games and get strung up on the symbols and words and whatnot, it's all the same fucking thing. And I guess you could even add consciousness to that, but maybe not. But yeah, truth, light, love. So everybody is clinging on to this truth. And if you really like get down to the nitty gritty with them, you find where that truth is. One of my biggest problems with the truth community has always been that everybody is looking for the lie. They're looking for the shadow. And so they get really good at identifying the lies, like, oh, that's a lie. Obviously, that's a lie, blah, blah, blah. But then they just spin their own lies. And I've been noticing this for a while. And like, even when I used to try to like do kinesiology, like I never had much luck with it unless I didn't care. Like if I didn't care about something, I had pretty good luck with it. Seemed to be pretty enough to prove to me that there was something to it. But and then I kind of realized that it's because you're asking about the lie. Like, why aren't you focusing on the truth? Why aren't you focusing on the light? And what I've been trying to do as I progress over the years is stop looking at the lie, stop looking at the shadow, and look at the what is true in there. Because you find that things are not. It's not like yes, no, black, white. There's like, it's better. It's more like, instead of like an on off switch, it's more like a dimmer switch, that the more counterclockwise you turn it, the more darker it becomes into you identify it as dark, as black or whatever. And the more clockwise you turn it, there's more light. Basically, truth is more of the same kind of thing. The more you expand your context, the more you expand your consciousness, the more of the truth you have, that you vibrate on an intuitive kind of level, as well as that becomes the organizing energy for your thoughts and your emotions and whatnot. But so in the truth community, they look at truth as on off, black, white, and but really, like I said, it's a dimmer switch. It's in degree. It's in degree. Like, so
it's on a spectrum.
Yeah, a spectrum, exactly. And it the truth could get so much that it dissolves your individual ego, like, blinded by the light, like on and on and on. Go back and listen to that. But it's your ego dissolves at a certain level of consciousness, and that's what enlightenment is. Enlightenment is the dropping of the ego and seeing that there is a higher you, a higher self that we're all a part of, that is organizing everything up and up and up all the way to what you call God, to the source. But at a certain level, you can't hold on to duality and ego consciousness anymore, because that you'd be blinded by the light. You wouldn't. You'd be dumbfounded. Like, you look onto the face of God, it melts you, as they say.
Yeah, you'd be like Arjuna when Krishna says, or when Arjuna says to Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, he's like, show me your true form. And Krishna just turns into basically the universe. And he's just like, whoa, I can't deal with it, man. It's that same thing.
Yeah, the human mind is what they say. You can pick up, like, your perception as a human. You can pick up what they claim 40 signals. And there's infinite amount of signals around you at all times. And you can, as the ego, even if you're arranging everything to the highest truth you can, and you call that objectivity, like, truth keeps expanding beyond that, the pen of what you call objectivity. Like, it becomes more nonlinear, and eventually dualism disappears. And I don't live there. To be totally honest, I got a lot of work to do still, but I've experienced it brief moments what that is like, and I could tell you that is a fact. Like, you can't debate me on that one. I mean, I understand that you're taking my word for it, and I can't fault you for not saying, well, that's just your word, Joe. But to me, it's no one can convince me otherwise. I know, like, it once you get past nonlinear and beyond duality, you dissolve, and there's something else animating, like you are in sense a puppet, or I think David Hawkins called it, you're the wind up toy. Like, you've just been wound up and you're going through the motions, like marching along. But but anyway, truth, it's that same animating energy is what truth is of, and there, for somebody to believe something, they're clinging onto the truth, even if it's just like, if they're in total darkness and there's like a little speck, you can see where the truth is that they're clinging to. Like, and they're just focusing on that little dot of truth. So you could call it, a half truth, but that's just for linguistic purposes, half truth. But I don't know, put it on any measure to, 0 to 100%, 0 to 1,000, 0 to a million, whatever. There's a spectrum, like Sharon said. And at a certain point, it dissolves humanness. And people who haven't done the work yet, I think that scares them. Like, because like the Bill Hicks joke, look at my fucking browser worry, look at this life, look at my bank account, look at my husband, look at my wife. You can't tell me this is not real, But the point being is, instead of like looking to the shadow, looking to the lies, why don't you try looking to what the truth is? And you see that there are half truths, and logic will prevail. If you don't look at the lie, by looking at the truth, you'll see what doesn't belong to the light, kind of thing. And it's a work in progress. I mean, I'm not perfect neither. I'm just telling you how I see it.
How dare you, Joe? We're all perfect. Yeah. But we can all use room for improvement. No, dude, I love what you just said. And it kind of reminds me of something I wanted to say that, well, first, I just want to say we said a spectrum, everybody, not the spectrum. So don't get it all, we don't want our autistic fans to get offended. That's humor, everybody. But Something Spoons, our dear friend and listener and slave now, listener Spoons, I've been writing some stuff and I sent it to her, and because in a part of it, I basically say, I talk about how me and Sharon talk about how we're aggregators of information. Well, we have a lot of time on our hands, and because of several ways that we've supported ourselves financially in the past and how we do it now, we have a lot of time. We don't have spouses or children, so we have all this time to look into it. And I wrote something like that, and Spoons was saying, she's like, you shouldn't sell yourself short, though. Like, you also could have a gift in this area of doing this stuff, and that also makes you better at it, because you could take these complicated concepts, just like I did when I worked at a car dealership in the service department. After I sold cars for years, I was working in service, and I knew basically like I could fix some stuff, and I used to work on jets, and then I was really into that, so I learned how transmission, automatic, and an engine actually works with pistons. So, but I was also really ignorant of that at one point. So I'm able now to easily distill that down to people. And it was really monetarily successful for me when I worked at the service department, because people loved me, because I could, they didn't feel like Dane Cook has this bit. He's like, you go to the, you go to the car mechanic and he just can tell you whatever. He's like, oh, a tiny unicorn was jumping around in your exhaust poking holes, like you have no idea what's going on. So anyway, I was able to put people at ease with that stuff and tell them about their car. Now, everybody wants to know what's wrong with their car. The secret is not everybody wants to know what's wrong with them. But because of this skill that I possess, and Sharon possesses it also, and you possess it as well. And that's why I want to say this, because you've also had time to look into this stuff, and you also have a great understanding of it. And you have a way to kind of distill it down, because we're all like, a lot of people that get into this stuff are complicated concepts. They might have grown up in like a, high society, talking, like speaking perfectly, not putting their elbows on the table and all that stuff. And most of us grew up just like normal, or even like, Joe and I were probably basically raised by wolves,
more or less.
Yeah,
and
right.
I grew up under a rock.
Yeah, and Sharon grew up under a rock, which is great. I love that, actually. That's why we get along so well, because she isn't affected by a lot of this stuff that goes on in society because of the way she was raised. She doesn't have, and I talk about this in what I'm writing too, the ego, or just the voice in your head, the self-defeating voice, unless you can overcome it. But it's always just like gnawing at you. So she probably doesn't have that as much, especially because her parents were singers on television and in movies and stuff, right? Am I getting that right? So
on television. And
yeah, on television.
Yeah. And radio.
And radio, that's what I was looking for. So she also has that knowing that you could be a singer and support yourself and do that stuff, where most of us growing up, all our parents just had like normal jobs that they're like hated. So it's like, we also have that limiting belief system, but Sharon doesn't have that because of that. And that's why I love to always talk with her about it, because I can get her side of things, and then I could kind of correct and see when I'm actually just coming out of a place from some kind of wound or whatever, or some kind of blind spot that I have because of the way I was raised. But anyway, I just wanted to share that because I know a lot of people are going to be like, how dare you? And what, it's like, no, people like us, this is our gift. Like some people, you can call them up and they could fix all your pipes. I always tell people that all the time. I'm like, you call me up, like for example, my parents are like, can you fix my toilet? I'm like, listen, I could get you a really good deal on a car. Like I could, I could like talk to people for you. I could do all that stuff, but I can't fix the toilet. I could try and maybe learn. I mean, I've fixed several things, but my gift is more with the idea stuff. Like can you fix a toilet? I could tell you what's going on in the world, but I can't for real, but I probably can't fix your toilet,
Yeah, same here. If you look at my astrology chart, everything is on one side of the chart. Like there's the whole half of it's completely empty. And I learned about later.
I have empty spots too.
I have half my chart is empty. Like it's all piled on one side. Wow. And how this kind of like that. How this seems to come about is I kind of found like the model of the INTJ of that 16 personality type thing to kind of explain it better than anything else could. How I kind of came into this incarnation is I'm 100% retarded when it comes to external things, but I make up for it by being a hard worker. But I'm literally a retard when it comes to physical things. Like I have no memory when it comes to like the external kind of world. I operate 100% on feeling and like this non-linearness. And I have to like be ritualistic with everything, like an autist, like a Rayman, like, I got to put my fucking keys right here. Or I'm going to lose them. Like I have to show up exactly 20 minutes early to work or earlier, or I have anxiety, almost, I wouldn't say anxiety, but like just to know I'm there, I'm ready to start work. Like, so I've kind of constructed like this robot almost behavior, this ritualistic behavior to function through my external world. But my internal world is like, like it's like, the INTJ thing where it showed that like, it's like, I operate 100% off like an internal intuition with external thought processes. Like I could play around with thoughts but I'm emotionally, I feel things, but I come off as really cold. Like one thing that Sandra was saying, because she said me and Alex are very similar, but Alex is warm and I'm cold. And I'm like, oh, thanks, babe. But it's,
that's funny.
Yeah, Alex is very warm. He's awesome.
Yeah. So you're INTJ, right? Interesting. I'm ENTJ, but keep going. Allegedly.
I tried to get Alex to take a couple of those tests, but he's not interested. But I'm pretty sure he's an INFJ. Like,
got it.
The thinking and feeling processes switched. Right. So he's a total introvert, a total space case, just like me. But and it also kind of like I'm very ritualistic because I'm a thinker. Like, and I planned everything out in my internal world and I go through the motions in my external world, but literally walking around with Alex is the most hilarious thing ever because he just kind of wanders around. Like, he's like, I think we should catch the bus, but nah, maybe we should take a taxi. What do you guys think? And I'm like, whatever you want to do, dude. Like, you're like,
I'm in Germany.
Yeah, but it's like for me, I would have to have everything ritualistically planned. We got to get to the bus stop at 20 minutes before it leaves. We got to be at this exact bus stop. I have the whole route plans, and then I just go through the motions. While Alex goes more about feeling, like, oh, guys, what do you guys want to do? Like, I kind of laugh. Yeah, because I was like, I recognize you're the same entity as me, but the thinking and the feeling is flipped. So you're like really like warm and you go with the flow, and I'm very ritualistic and cold. Like, but we're both like totally operating from our internal worlds and very oblivious to our external. Well, I wouldn't say oblivious, but not like.
No, I know.
Not focused on it.
Yeah, that's funny because I'm allegedly an INTP, and I feel like I have parts of both of those. Like I'm very wandery, but I will look up everything ahead of time and know different things, but then I just leave options, but I just totally then wander also, but I'll know that the train's going to leave at this time. So we got to wander this way or whatever, or that's crazy.
No, I'm a total like robot when it comes to the external world. I'll admit it. Like that's how I get by. That's how I'm getting through this life. Like it's
does not compute.
yeah. No, yeah, because I got everything mapped out in the internal world, and then I just like push the button to play out the external world.
I'm a robot. I'm talking like a robot.
I always wanted a robot for a best friend, Futurama. That's hilarious.
Yeah. So like I'm a retard. Like for instance, when I started doing construction when I was like 17, I couldn't do it. Nothing. Like I was useless, except I could lift stuff and carry stuff and pick up the garbage. But I soon became the boss loved me. And even though they would teach me like a skill, it would take me a few weeks to bumble my way through that skill. And I did so many repetitions, and now I'm a framing robot. Like I can frame a wall like a robot, like and not even think about it and become faster than everyone else. And or like I was a retard the first time I had to change a tire, like a flat tire, but I changed 10 flat tires, and now I could change it like a NASCAR pit crew, but that everyone thinks I'm like an idiot until like a month later, and then I could do it 10 times faster and better than anyone else. Not to brag, but that's just how I operate now. And I always get like kind of like resentment from my colleagues, like wherever I go, like, are you trying to show us up kind of thing? Like, I'm like, no, man, I'm just fucking, I want to do the best job. You know, I'm here anyway. I got to do my best, blah, blah, blah. But like, if you saw me that first few weeks, that first month when I was learning a new skill, I'm a literal idiot. Like I am useless when it comes to a lot of external kind of activities.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm very similar in that way. Like I'm always losing or dropping my cell phone. Like it doesn't even exist. You know, keys, the same thing. I'm like, where did I put my keys? And that could make me late for things. Like, because I'm not really worried. Sharon knows this about being on time all the time. Unless you want me to DJ your wedding, guys, then I'm always on time. Everything works out perfect. But in my other life, I kind of just, I'm fashionably late. And then I always underestimate how long it's going to take me to do something. You know, like I'm like,
oh, ridiculously misunderestimate.
Yeah. But I think it does have to do with the physical is just not important to me. So I'm just like, I don't know. Like my friends always used to say, they're like, don't tell us you're going to be ready in 15 minutes. Like it was the infamous Brandon 15 minutes. I just like, oh yeah, like 15 minutes.
Like when we were in Sedona and I was like, where's Brandon? And everybody looks at me and they're like, we've been dealing with this the whole trip. Like this is not new.
Yeah, it's the Wanderer. But in my defense, I was on the toilet and that's
oh my God.
The situation.
Are you sure? You're just making that up.
No, I remember. I think I even said it on a show before time in Sedona.
But I thought you might be joking. I thought you were just
no, I was serious. Yeah, that's why I felt bad because I literally didn't know how long it was going to take. I was like, I think it's, you know how it is. Sometimes you're on the toilet, everybody. Yeah, no, I hear you though. I'm definitely, but some of the things though, sometimes, you know, I don't know. Sometimes I think I do on purpose, right? In certain situations, like if it's a social situation and I feel like the energy is too fast or too high or too, I'm not talking about Sedona. I'm just saying like with other friends and stuff where they're just too anxious or whatever. I on purpose go slow, you know, like, I mean, I didn't do that in Sedona or whatever, but I'll purposely take my time and do things. And then especially if someone's watching me or rushing me, I'm just like, I'm going slower now. You know what I mean? And I don't even, yeah, I would do that in the Marine sometimes too. That's why I was an airplane mechanic, but I was really only good at the basic servicing functions we would do all the time. Anytime we had to like do some real major repair, I was a flashlight holder basically. So yeah. And I was late so many times in the Marines. Man, it was crazy. I got in trouble for it when I was working with the MPs for a little while. I got temporary assigned over there for 6 months. I like volunteered for it. And then I was like, what did I do? But yeah, they like kicked me out and put me back. And as I was going back to my unit, I don't know if I ever told you this story, but I go back to my unit. And this is after I'd already been in the Corps for like 2 years. I went on an aircraft carrier and like I went all around the world. So I get back to my unit and that's the air wing guys. And the sergeant major, whoever it was, looks at the thing they wrote in my permanent record, and he just rips it out. He's like, fuck these guys. He's like, you've been all the way around the world. They've never left North Carolina. Like, get out of here. It was so funny. I was like, yeah, dude. He's like, you're one of me, aren't you? But yeah, it was pretty cool. But yeah, I'm definitely aware of that trait in myself. So
yeah, but that's what makes us a genius at other things, like being able to look at these patterns and look at things from a spiritual perspective is a gift. Now, like we were talking about the 16 personalities or astrology, and to a large degree, there is a very deterministic structure to this incarnation. Like, but there's still your level of consciousness. There's still your level of spirit to how you contextualize things, and that is the free will aspect. And while things will play out in a very deterministic kind of pattern, it's going to play out for you based on what frequency, what level of consciousness, what's your context. Like that is the free will, because if you change the way you look at something, you're going to rearrange how you're, like how we talked about last time with the, the analogy of which is kind of literal in a sense, the iron filings arranging to the magnetic field based on their charges, based on the charge of the field. And if you change the field, you change the patterns, blah, 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 blah. So while the sky clock or like the 16 personality things, there's truth to it. There is a deterministic kind of element. Like there's certain things that are not going to change. Like I'm not going to grow a foot taller, like for instance, like, but
not if you don't want to. Brandon grew an inch. Or 0.33 Rogans.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so the consciousness is going to determine where in this realm you're going to be, and what's when you turn left instead of right, and to say something versus not to say something, and on it, the infinite amount of variables is going to depend on how you're looking at something. Like that is your free will. I think we were also talking about this recently, like they say angels or demons or animals don't have free will, is because they're always the same context, the same spirit, the same energy, the same vibration. So they don't have the free will like the human has in this realm to change the way they look at something, to look at it from the most demonic, like serial killer kind of stuff, all the way up to the highest Christ level of consciousness. And based on that vibration, how you're looking at things is how, when this, the balls are pinging around in this big ping pong ball, whatever, what is that, pinball? Everything's pinging around and hitting everything.
Pinballs. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That might not make sense, but the point being is, like based on your level of consciousness, of your context, of your spiritual energy, is that free will, which you always have. You could always kind of look at it like the watcher watching a movie. Awareness watching the movie, because that aspect of you that's watching like the emotions and watching me talk right now and watching this room right now, like all these sensory kind of things, there's something watching that, and it can look at something and say, hey, I missed the mark, and you can change your level of consciousness. And the person who gave it best to everyone, even though it's completely ignored, was Christ, when he talks about the Lord's Prayer. It's actually funny because I bookmarked this because I thought maybe we talk about this, but I don't even think I'd need to look at the passage. But it's the Lord's Prayer. He's saying, don't mindlessly mouth fucking words. And then what does everyone do? They mindlessly mouth the Lord's Prayer. Like, no, it's the Lord's Prayer is creating a contextual energy to surrender to God. Father, let your will be done. Let heaven as it is. Heaven, the higher energies, the higher the energy, the more expansive it becomes. Like, as I talked about earlier, like let your will be done. You're creating a context and surrendering to God to give you grace to be able to see things differently. Because that's what grace basically is, to be able to see things from a higher perspective, which will change how you're going to act and think, so and such as this realm is playing out, as the sky clock is doing its thing, as your wiring and your friends wiring and everybody, the collective's doing its thing, and all this infinite amount of things are playing out. Where your level of consciousness is going to determine how you navigate through it. And to me, that's not debatable. It should be fucking obvious. It should be, just be honest. Like you didn't think to go to the refrigerator, like that thought just arose. You didn't, like, all this stuff is just happening. Like it do. And people, you know, the theistic worldview is like, oh, well, we're just all like meat robots. And it's like I said, back to being half truths. There's truth in that, but you do have a spirit consciousness that all this stuff is animating out of, like manifesting out of. And based on your level of consciousness is going to arrange your ego, mind, body, organism is going to be arranged based on the totality of all that ever existed. So the way your free will is literally to like how you look at something, which is going to change the whole outcome, will it not? So like, and Christ told them, this is how you pray. Prayer is like, and I like David R. Hawkins, you would say you shouldn't pray, you should try to become the prayer. And that basically is, if you look at the Lord's Prayer as an overall tapestry, as an overall context, and not as a bunch of words like strung out like in a line. If you create that context, you're opening the door for grace to raise your level of consciousness. So mic drop.
Yeah, that was great. And one thing I wanted to add to that is, you're right about not being your thoughts. And I was writing about this recently too. It's like you get all these thoughts, just like it's kind of what we call the ego. It's this voice also that speaks to you and repeats all this negative information that was uploaded to you probably when you were younger, and your parents are raising you and all the people around you, all these exterior sources that you were trained to get your validation from. So you have this voice now, and then also these thoughts pop in probably from the same area. And I know in my life, once I learned to realize that's what that was, and I could just let the thought go, let the crazy, if I was lost in my head about something or worried or scared, I could just say, I could focus back in the present moment. I'm fine here. I'm fine. Everything's fine. And realize that these are just thoughts and I could let them go. And I think that's something I just wanted to highlight there, because it's kind of part of the main message of the Oversharing show, stuff like that. So, but yeah. Unless Sharon has, or she could say, you have anything to say about that, or do you want to say something? Because I also want to ask him another question that keeps going.
Go ahead. You can ask.
So that kind of brings me to manifesting stuff. And we talked about 7-Eleven and what that could have been when it was a part-time job. And but as far as manifesting, I saw something recently that kind of made me think a lot. I was at a wedding and two people were getting married and they were saying their own vows. And when the bride read her vows, she said, "This is a letter that I wrote to my future husband or my future lover," because she was looking for somebody and she couldn't find somebody that was right. So she decided she was just going to go to the park and sit down and write a letter. And then 2 months later, she meets this guy, and they are like, I see a lot of people. Fortunately, I get to, because of my job, see a lot of people get married, and I'm always around people like in their best day of their life, or later it could be the worst day right now. But no, most of the couples we work with, that I've worked with, especially recently, I could tell that they're kind of meant for each other. Just the way, once in a while you get some people that are a little, but even then, if they're like nitpicky and all that, then maybe that's what they need. But I've seen like a lot of loving couples, and these guys were great together. So it's crazy how she technically manifested him into her life, because that's where she put all her attention, and she even wrote it out and kind of created her own story. So that's just something I wanted to share with you. And what do you think also about manifesting? Like, because I know you've manifested some stuff in the past. You talked about it. You talked about a house and stuff like that. But where do you lie now on that, with your thought process as far as manifestation and all that?
Oh, the first thing, did you guys listen to that Grant Morrison thing I put into the chat? I know Carmen listened to it, but I'm not sure if you guys did.
When did you put it in?
I don't know. A few days, a week ago? I don't know.
Oh, shoot.
I'll tell you what, I'll send Sharon the link, and maybe she could put it under this video if anyone's interested. Grant Morrison was a comic book writer who discovered that if he made his character like him, and put him through certain things, like it would eventually manifest in his personal life.
Wow.
Part of
I'm starting a comic. No, I'm just kidding.
This could work for any kind of art. Basically, Alan Moore, another comic book writer who studies occultism, while Grant Morrison is more of the chaos magic. Alan Moore is more of a what do you call it, ritualistic magician, like a Crowley Knight, and pretty much they approach magic from two different like schools of thought, but ultimately occultism. And in Alan Moore's case, he's literally, every time there's a protest somewhere in the world, they're all wearing that sperm mask. Basically, Alan Moore brought that into manifestation through his comic book V for Vendetta. That later
they made it into a movie. Yeah.
The Guy Fawkes mask.
Yeah, he also wrote Watchmen and Swamp Thing, and a lot of like famous things became movies. And they openly tell you about how they use occultism through their art. They're very open about it. Like that's another thing, like where I think a lot of conspiracy theory kind of truther are wasting their time, because you could just go to the sources, like the horse's mouth, so to speak, and not have to theorize about all this shit, and you actually get to a quicker understanding. I mean, maybe that's just me. I'm not really interested in like book knowledge. I want to know what I can use, what is functional. I've always kind of been wired like that. But anyway, so these two guys, and basically when the part of occultism I was going through, they wanted you to, during the neophyte grade, build up a alter ego. So instead of me being Joe, which is who I am in my normal life, who has a certain past, has certain belief systems and structures, et cetera, you would build up a kind of a magical ego that is separate from Joe, and this new ego has magical powers and can manifest things, and he's a sorcerer and blah blah blah. And you through the neophyte grade and through the grades that follow, you continually build up this thing, and anytime you do a magical ritual, you do it through this ego who has magical powers, because he doesn't have these belief systems and structures that are stopping you from manifesting things as your normal ego, because of all these belief systems and upbringings and whatnot. So you're creating this totally different ego, multiple personalities. It's been proven that if when personalities switch and these schizophrenics, like things like even their eye color changes, like it's not just like a mental thing. They're literally changing their total vibration and their total personality. And what you do in this branch of magic that was passed down from Crowley, that's been around way past Crowley. He just rediscovered it and passed it on to his people who came up their own systems. But basically, you're doing all these rituals through that magical ego, because there's no limitations on this. So you're giving yourself what I heard once brilliantly called from this one channeler, permission slips. Like all these things in occultism and symbolism and all these belief systems and stuff like that, where you give magical powers to like a crystal or something like that, it would be considered a permission slip, that now you're pushing your belief system on this symbol, and now it does have that power because you put your belief into it, and you're using the symbol, which that's what magic pretty much is moving the symbols around to implant like a new kind of blueprint to bring upon like a new manifestation into the physical realm. So, and but Grant Morrison came from the idea of chaos magic. Chaos magic, magicians, they don't believe in nothing. They're like kind of nihilistic occultist. And to be honest, they're kind of more truth, in my opinion, than the ritual kind of stuff. Where like a chaos magician will say, well, the sky clock is all bullshit. All that is pretty much we put all our energy into the sky clock, into the certain symbols, and that's why it does ultimately have a power over us. And to an extent, they're kind of correct. It's just is way beyond us that created the sky clock. Whatever created this realm which I'm under the opinion it wasn't God the creator, what the Gnostics called the demiurge created the sky clock and had everyone put their energy into this. It's always kind of been like this. It's kind of is like a simulation in a sense, but not like a computer, like a dream, like where you structure everything based off of your waking reality, how you dream, and you structure it all around a certain energy, and then you play out a dream. Well, it's the same kind of thing how this world seems to be playing out. But yeah, Grant Morrison would just like, I'll let Sharon put the link in there. It's better to listen to it from him. To answer your question, like, that's why I gave up occultism, and that's why I warn people not to do it. Look into it, but you don't want it to be your final goal. Reasoning being is just kind of how we were talking about earlier when I said, like, you didn't have the dot to get up and go to the refrigerator is based on the totality of the whole universe and your overall context as you right now that brought that dot up, like that dot just came up by itself. It's the same thing when you're doing all these magical kind of occult things, and you see that you fall back into a very egoic energy field, a very egoic consciousness every time you're bringing things into manifestation. And there's like, it's by default, every time you do some sort of occultism, you're falling into an egoic energy, and you watch these people sink lower and lower and lower the deeper they get in. And that's kind of my issue about it, because it's like you're bringing things into manifestation, but like I said earlier, there's kind of a deterministic kind of thing from the totality of all of the universe that it is like bringing that dot up, and you kind of always know when you come into this that you're going to have, for example, like that you gave a significant other is going to come about. And that the very action of her putting it into like pen, just like Grant Morrison did with his things where he was trying to get laid or make money or whatever he was up to. He explains it. It was based off your overall energy field, of your overall consciousness, and to what you think is going to make you happy. And what I found is everything I tried to manifest out of my ego, when I finally got it, didn't make me happy. And then you want more, you always want more. There's always got to be more. It's always got to be more. It's just like a fucking heroin junkie, like, or a drug addict. Like just one more. And like, those lower kind of energy fields, they always keep pulling you down. Like, you like porn, like it's going to keep pulling you down to becomes more perverse. It's the same thing with the occult. And I don't see any example that this has not happened to somebody who is practicing it. Like, granted, there's a lot of people out there. We used to call them, back when I was studying this, the armchair occultists, that just intellectually gather everything, but they don't actually do anything. And so everything's kind of just theory to them. It's not experiential. But once you start going into the experiential realm, it's like you're just going to keep getting pulled farther into the abyss each time, as because it's never enough. It's not enough when you get the house. It's not enough when you get the money. It's not enough. You got to keep more and more and more, and your context keeps degrading and going down. Your spiritual energy keeps going down, and you keep manifesting out of this. And the next thing you know, you wind up a lonely fucking opium addict, and you die in some bloke somewhere. Or a famous example.
How dare you? No.
Yeah, and that I would say that's like manifesting from the ego, like you were saying, Brandon, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I would, if it's okay, I would like to overshare a little bit of my personal experience of manifestation. I don't believe it was egoic in that regard. And I didn't, for example, practice any sort of ritual in the sense of like, I didn't do any sigils or, I simply knew in my heart of hearts that I wanted a companion, but I wanted it to be from source, the best that source had for me. And I didn't want to write a story about how it was going to appear, how it was going to look. But I had certain things that I did want. And because of my experience with my late husband, who was, I believe, like a twin soul for me, we just matched up very perfectly. We had a wonderful type of union where we didn't argue about things. Everything really worked. We respected each other. We loved each other pretty much unconditionally type, where we didn't have judgments toward each other. And I was like, I want that again, you know? And so there were certain things that I did tell Source that I wanted, but I didn't want to write this story of like, oh, how we're going to meet or anything like that. I just told Source to send me the best that Source had for me. And I've done a lot of healing work with a lot of wounds and a lot of things that have happened to me, and painful experiences that I've had to go through a lot of healing of those wounds. So I was hopefully, you know, coming from a place of love and a place of gratitude for even everything that I've been through, and even where I you know, I wasn't sure how long I was going to be single. And so I started seeing signs from the universe telling me that this man was coming. And as early as, I'm going to say, like a year ago, when I started doing card readings for myself. And I was reading, and the cards were like saying that this man was coming, you know, and they were very specific in regards to it was going to be a Taurus man, and just the kind of characteristics that this person was going to have. Like, he was going to be very patient. And so, and he was going to be like, it was going to be okay to take it slow and not rush into anything. So, you know, there was just a lot of stuff like that. Right. And as I got closer to Bear Fest, it, like the week of, I was like, the day before I left for Bear Fest, I saw a cricket in my bedroom. I don't get creatures. I don't get like bugs in my house. So I was like, where did you come from, buddy? Like, why are you here? And it was at night, and I didn't want to, like, I wasn't going to kill it. I was just going to put a little cup over it and take it outside. But I was like, yeah, it's late. So I just put like a glass mason jar over the carpet. Well, in the morning, I hear like scratching. And then I come out and I see he's outside of it, and he's just standing right there next to it. And I'm like, why are you there? Like, how'd you get out? And like, why are you just sitting there? Like, he didn't try to leave. He didn't try to hop away or anything. Like, he was telling me, just, I am a sign for you. But I didn't get it. I didn't register. So I was like, you know what? I'll deal with that later. I'll just take him outside later. If I find him, if I see him, I'm not worried about it. I took my walk. As I was walking in my neighborhood, I hear crickets. I'm like, I never hear crickets. Like, not even in my house, not even at night. Like, I don't hear crickets. And all of a sudden I'm hearing crickets during the day. And I keep walking. And then I come to another part of my walk, and I hear more crickets. And I'm like, wait, okay, this is okay, enough. I have to look up what the cricket spirit animal means. So I looked up what the cricket spirit animal meant. And it represented good luck for sure. But there was also this element of meeting someone, you know, meeting your partner. And I was kind of like, whoa, like, well, I guess I'm going to be at the festival this weekend. Maybe that's where I'm going to meet somebody. And I didn't put a lot of like thought into it, like, you know, how it's going to happen. Who is it going to be? Like, I briefly did, but then I thought, I mean, how am I supposed to know? I don't know. But one thing I did tell Source is, like, when you bring this man, like, let it be undeniable to me. And like, don't let me have to pick or choose or decide if it's one person or another person. Just let it be what it is, and let it be undeniably so, that I cannot at all question what is going on. And I also was getting like numbers. I was seeing a lot of numbers. So I started looking up the numbers that I was seeing. And I was also getting messages like, I got one particular message that was like, it's okay to be risky this time with this person that you're going to meet. It's okay to be risky. Like, because previously, I was just trying to see like where things were with people. Like if somebody was going to be interested in me, they were going to make it known. It was going to be obvious. I was going to reciprocate, that sort of thing. And that like, I wasn't getting that like from anything. So I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to wait and see what happens, And, so I was like, okay, so I guess that means I can be like, the person that shows that kind of interest, then I can be risky and I can like, I'll probably show interest back, I guess. Right.
Yeah,
I didn't know what that
risky,
message meant.
everybody, just so you know, because it is 2022. She means like with her emotions and stuff. That's what we're talking about, you pervert. So get your head out of the sewer. Anyway.
Oh, risky with my emotions. Thank you, Brandon.
Hey, no problem. So what I do. Still thought it was funny. Yeah, see, he gets it. Because people are going to be like, ooh, Sharon's getting risky. You pervert, stop it.
Risky? No, risky with my emotions.
Yeah, yes. Okay, continue.
Yeah. So in other words, it's okay to like put your heart out there this time. Right. So thank you for clarifying that. So I was getting all these messages. Right. And then, Bear Fest happens. Right. And, I met him for the first time. We had already been friends. We had been friends for like almost a good year and a half or more, that we've just been, online friends, basically through Bertaria, through Telegram, through the group chats that we're in together, and, just building a good friendship. Because I didn't, and this is the thing is, I said this in our episode 6 and 6.6, we talked about my philosophy on dating. And basically I manifested exactly what was going to happen based on my philosophy, which was that I was going to meet people in community and make friendships. And then I was going to meet that someone, and it was going to spark at some point, and, so, I met him. His name's Cody. And I guess this is going to be common knowledge by the time this airs. So, he was the bass player at the festival. And, so we got to hang out a lot together, and it was very fun. We were just spending time together, was really nice. So we just got to get to know each other a little better in person, but we didn't really know because, you can hint a lot, but you don't know if the hints are getting taken. You know what I mean? So there was hinting going on, but, it wasn't until the last day of the festival and he was leaving, and like the goodbye that we had was very like, whoa, okay. That was not like normal. That was like different. So it was something that, triggered us the next couple of days to talk about it. And then, we just realized, and then it was just like the syncs were ridiculously off the chain. Like everything that we talked about was like, we agreed on so many things. The way we saw things was like practically identical. The way he saw things a lot was the way Wesley would see things. Like it was just incredible, like super incredible. And, I was operating from, the principle of the golden rule. I mean, I didn't want to harm anybody. This was just me knowing that at some point I was going to meet someone, but I wanted also for it to be a certain way. So, could it be that I manifested that?
Totally. You did manifest that. And disclaimer, we're always manifesting at all times. We can't stop doing that. That's kind of when I was talking about occultism, that's an inversion of what happens just because of consciousness. Like, and everybody deserves to be happy. And you deserve to, like, to, if you're coming out of a pure like intention, like, and you're surrendering to God, going back to the Lord's Prayer, read the Lord's Prayer. If it's coming from that context, you're good. And it sounds like you are. And to be honest, like, time will tell what the energy it was vibrated out of, but for anything to be manifested, it has to be put into love, which happiness goes along with that. So like, time will tell. Sounds to me your intentions were pure and you're of total surrender. And there's a script playing out as well, as we discussed earlier. Like, talking about these things is incredibly nuanced. Like, and yeah, I wish you guys the best of luck, and let you know everybody's manifesting at all times. Like, and it's always going to play out through synchronicity. That's even the occult magicians know that. They never know how it's going to come to them. Like, it's going to come out through synchronicities, and ironically, just through physics, it's going to come on that same energy field your intention came out of. Like, for instance, the energies I was messing with, like how in the ritual that I experienced, the synchronicities played out, and I was in that. That house came out of anger, or like a passionate, I wouldn't say anger, but like an intense kind of fucking energy, which how I charged the ritual, and it came through this chain of cause and effect and synchronicity. And the next thing I knew, I was in this house. And I was so angry when I got the house at first, because long story, some other time, but it's just for one example, a lot of things came about. Some things had more pure intentions than others. And that's some things came out of the attention of not Joe, but this alter ego I was describing earlier as well. Yeah, it's a very nuanced and complicated topic. That's why I kind of like, I think if you're interested in it, you're interested in it for a reason, and you should look into it. But you just don't play with fire, man. Like as I described, because if the ego will always spiral you down into the abyss, if not in this lifetime, through the lifetimes to come. And there's a lot of things beyond your perception that are going on that have influence over you. Not to like be fear mongering and whatnot, but there are all kinds of things that you might not perceive right now that sometimes from my observations, it's too late by the time you might realize something. And I don't know God's plan for me or for anybody, but if you're coming out of a pure intention, out of a pure vibration, those thoughts to say that prayer like you did might come from that energy, because that's just how physics works. So, but as for everything else, I really wish you the best of luck, and time will tell. There's not much I can say about that. I'm not God. I can't see all the nuances. So,
yeah.
That's awesome. Well, what I could say is I've met the man myself in person, and he's a really great guy. So as your older brother and the patriarch of your family now, I give my blessing, to you guys, because he's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Cody's a good dude. He came to my house when we had a 4th of July mini bear meetup in 2021, and he was there, and he was awesome. Yeah, totally. So
thank you.
Yeah, and I can't agree with Joe. I almost said Alex. I can't agree with Joe more on that, because the way that I describe my realm earth theory is, part of it is that if you don't have any fear, nothing can really harm you until, the day you're got to die anyway. But, and by that same tenet, we talk about like people getting sick and healing themselves and the power of belief. crystals, this is just like a talisman. Some people say it's on a certain vibration and all this stuff, but this is like a talisman that I could use to put a belief into. And then if I believe it enough, I can manifest that in my life. But, or I think you could just have it because it looks cool, right? Either one, right? There's so many ways.
I
That's
just
why
have crystals because they look cool.
Yeah, that's what it's also like camouflage, because when people see, especially if you're a guy that you have crystals, they let you get away with some things. They're like, yeah, he's probably like, we're not going to talk to him about covering a smiling face. Like he's probably a magician or something. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, I connect with people on a different level because of it. And I noticed that. So, but this crystal could possibly heal somebody because they feel
it would.
They believe
Yes.
it, right? And in that same way, because their belief, I feel like this is how this whole realm is made. And going back to what I said earlier about Mandela, when you get the collective consciousness believing certain things, it's going to happen. And as far as you, Sharon, yeah, everything Joe said is definitely right. Like, I feel like it's not a bad thing. Like Joe said, the occult is just the inversion of how reality works. And what he means when he says that is reality works on your beliefs and what you're going to believe. They just take the inversion of that and they use it to their advantage to get what they want, instead of co-creating and this isn't a judgment, whatever, people don't even realize they're doing this, right? But instead of co-creating a beautiful existence for everybody, they are trying to elevate themselves for one reason or another, even if it's just to get a house or whatever. And then it becomes a vicious spiral. And this is how I think most of the society works. It's not the average person who's like this that knows anything about it. They're just vibrating on that frequency. So there's people that are like high magicians that know this, and then they could take advantage of all those people on that level to get them to do, like maybe cover their smiling face, or maybe to support Trump, like it's both sides are kind of guilty of this in this. It's not like I'm just picking on one side, but yeah, I think what he said is absolutely right. Like it's not bad to manifest what you want in life if it's, I feel, what is really for your, I don't know, I guess your ultimate path and everything that you're here to do, kind of doing your dharma, which I talked about.
Yeah, dharma, perfectly put. Understand dharma, and
yeah, and dharma, basically, what I've noticed between dharma and karma, this is what you get from like the Eastern religions. If you're creating karma, that means you're not walking on your path, whatever reason it is. You're just acting from like an egoic side, trying to be like a little mini grabbler, even if it's little things. And when you're not doing that, all those actions create ripples that could sometimes come back to you. So it's not exactly, though, how they say karma, like it comes back. It doesn't always come back, but it will eventually, because it's reverberating in the whole realm, right? And then now, as you start to walk a path that is more in alignment with the golden rule and natural law, and more in alignment with creating a beautiful dream for the collective or whatever, or for the universe, I think that you stop to accrue this karma and you're actually doing your dharma. That's what they call it, because you're just kind of walking your path and you're not living this existence with the belief system that you're the center of the universe, that it's people are better than you, but you could still protect yourself and do all these things. I'm not saying to become like some kind of crazy hippie, but it's more that you are just kind of living in accordance with the golden rule and natural law.
Yeah.
Well,
sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, you go ahead. I can bring it up afterward.
Yeah, as Brandon just said, and dharma is it's following your script, but at the same time that you're following your script, because you have no choice, you always should focus on bettering yourself and raising your own kind of consciousness. That should always be the first priority. In Christ said the highest laws were to love God with all your heart and love your neighbor like yourself. Something along that line. Yeah, that should always be where your missile is aimed, and anything that comes out of that vibration behind that missile. Like that, the biggest thing I see with people like relationships and stuff fail is because they're not working on themselves. They get too wrapped up in the pleasing the other person, or a lot of people manifest relationships just to fight for some reason. I don't, that's like the most miserable existence I could think of. It's like, but that's what they think a relationship is. And that's what they want. They want somebody they can fight with and have sex with, I guess. Cause I don't understand what a lot of people are together.
It's trauma. It's a trauma that they've created. And so they don't know how to live without that trauma. So that's their vibration and they attract that vibration.
Or it's what their soul or whatever it is, energy needed to go
learn.
through to learn certain things, or to maybe finally get sick of it, to do it till they're done. Right. But I agree with that.
Go and listen to Rodney's thing. Brandon clipped it. If you haven't watched that, he gave some relationship advice in his character, but it is the best relationship fucking advice I've ever heard anyone ever give. Go listen to that 100 fucking times if you have to, because even though he's doing a character, he's being funny, like he's telling you the absolute fucking truth. So I was like, that is such a awesome clip to have on the internet.
Shout out to Rodney Norman.
Yeah, shout out. He's killing it. I freaking so excited.
Yeah. So what I was going to bring up earlier when you were talking about like living in accordance with the golden rule, it also reminds me of Neville Goddard, who talks about like manifesting from that perspective of like, as long as you're manifesting in the perspective of like you're living your life in accordance with the golden rule and your desires are not going to harm someone, you can have what you ask for, like what you imagine in your mind. And in fact, when I had heard a story, a Neville Goddard testimony by this lady, and in fact it was actually in Spanish, because there's a channel on Telegram I follow where they release Spanish versions of they'll translate them and then say them in Spanish for the Spanish speaking audience. And I heard one of them just by chance, because I never really have heard any of it. One day I just decided I was going to listen to one, and this particular lady inspired me, and her testimony inspired me. So I said, okay, I'm going to try this. So, and again, I wasn't being ritualistic about it necessarily, because I didn't do it like every night, you know what I'm saying? But I did do it a couple of times. As soon as I heard the episode, I did it in my mind. I made it the imagination. And then I also did it like a couple of times before I went to bed that week that I heard it. And I didn't do it a lot all the time or anything. I probably did it no more than 3 or 4 times ever. But this was like right before going to the Bertaria Festival, honestly, not even recognizing that's what was going to happen. Right. But I imagined in my mind, because here's the thing too, I had been so long without having such a relationship like that. Like with Wesley, it had been like 12 years. So, since he passed. So I wasn't even remotely in my mind. I couldn't even imagine what it used to be like. And I was so far gone from that. I was like, I don't even know what it feels like to be in love anymore. I just don't know what that feels like anymore. So I was like, well, what is the most, because what Neville Goddard asks, or not asks you to do, but he basically says to imagine, use your human imagination to imagine the state you want to be at and the feeling that you want to have in that state, right? And you just imagine and remember that feeling and absorb that feeling into yourself and just like sit with it, that's all. That's all you have to do. It's very simple. So I was like, well, I don't even know what it feels like to be in love with anybody anymore. Like, how does that even feel? So I was like, well, what is the absolute simplest thing that I can imagine for that? And I was like, okay, I'm just going to imagine that whoever this man is, he's giving me a hug. And then for whatever reason, I was like, I just imagined that he would lift me. Like, I just imagined that. And that is like the first thing that happened when he saw me, like at the parking lot where I was like telling him to park, because we met at a restaurant. And our friend Spoons we had a reserved a table, so we were outside in the patio, but she was out, and I was like, hey, I called him. I was like, hey, there's a spot. I'm going to call you so I can direct you to the spot. So he pulled around the corner and he saw me, and he like, his eyes, like his face just like changed, and he was just like so happy, and like rolled his window down, he was like so happy to see me. And then finally he just pulled into, I told him where to park. He pulled in and he got out of his car immediately, and he just came and gave me a hug, and he lifted me. And I was like, okay. Wow. I'm like, I didn't even, but at the time I'm still like not thinking that's that. Yeah, like, I was just like, yeah. I was just like, you know what? It, you know, maybe it's flirting. I don't know. Like, I'm not going to take it that way. I'm just going to, I'm just like, source. Is that like a hint that it's coming soon? Whoever this man is coming soon. Like, I didn't even think of him that, like, I wasn't trying to put it on anybody, because I told Source, like, make it undeniable for me. So that wasn't going to be the only time it happened. He did it again at the festival, pretty much in front of all the tent. I had called him over because like we had to talk, and Joe Gagan wanted to talk to him. And so he's like, go find Cody. And so I went over and I saw where he was, and I was like pretty much in front of the tent, and the stage was right there. And I was like off to the side, and I saw him, and I called him over, and he comes toward me. And then as he is coming toward me, he's accelerating. And then he he comes, he grabs me, not grabs, but like he takes me and he lifts me. And then he's like, he didn't want it to be like too crazy. So he like put me down pretty quick. But I was like, he just did that in front of like all of them back there. I was like, wow. Yeah, it was crazy. So it was like multiple hints throughout. But the thing that I had just imagined in my head, like, how did that happen? You know what I'm saying? It's just so bizarre.
Well, I think you believe in the Neville Goddard stuff, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. See, because you believe it, it's going to work when you do it. And
yeah,
I think that's amazing. And, you know, it could be whatever you want to, you know, I could say, if I could get myself to believe this beautiful moonstone will, you know, make me win the lottery. If I could actually believe it, then it's going to happen. Like, it's crazy. Like with me in the poker story I told the other day, I just imagined what it would be like to win that extra little bonus money. Like when they're about to call the table. So quick story. If you guys don't know this, I went to bring my friend Pat Oates, who's a comedian, to the casino to perform for the weekend. So I just had to drop him off. It was a Thursday, and I had to get back for some meetings. So, but I had a few hours to kill. So I was like, let me go play some poker. And I hadn't been there in a while. So they have this new promotion where every once an hour during, you know, the day or whatever, they'll call a table. And that table, out of like 40 tables that are playing, they go over to that table, they put this special chip in there, and whoever wins that next hand of poker out of the, I guess they have 9 guys now because of the deadly corona instead of 10 guys at the table now. Yeah, it's so silly. It's
Are you freaking serious?
You're not 6 inches away. You're 8 inches away now, you know? Yeah, it's hilarious. But they make more money that way. So, because they get basically the way poker, the casino, it's not like blackjack where they're betting against you. And when you go play poker, you're playing against the other people. That's why I like to play, because the odds can be in your favor. This has been proven. But they just take a cut of every pot. So if they only have 9 people at every table, they can have an extra table going and making money, because they're still going to have the same amount of pots basically going per hour when they do that. Or that's what they think. But anyway, conspiracy theory there. But no, some people like the arm room. I don't mind it. I'm not really, you know, whatever. But so anyway, they bring this chip over. Oh, when they went to call the table, and the lady next to me is like, they're going to call us. And we were number 13. She's like, we're going to call 13. But I imagined them calling it. And then they said table 13. Like, I imagined what I would feel like, basically, right? Like the excitement. And then I sat there and I also imagined myself winning that hand out of the 9 guys that were there. And I did. And it was crazy because like everybody went all in. So I won more money in that hand than I did in the promotion, but I still won $300 in the promotion. It was nice. So it was a nice little, you know, boost. But I imagined myself winning the hand, and I did. And then the envelope they give you can have 300 to 5,000. So I tried to imagine the 5,000, but I think there's just too much excitement around me and I couldn't. So I just got the 3. But anyway, still, I'll take 300. there was still a little bit of doubt in there. You know what I mean? Like, it's so crazy. And I remember having that doubt, and that's what it was. I bet I could have got the $5,000 if I just thought about it. But who knows? If I got $5,000, I could have got excited and went somewhere and got hit by a bus. You know what I mean? That's what I always say. I could. What's $5,000 when you hit by a bus? You know what I mean? I think that's why Joe loves this show.
The comedy hour.
One of the reasons. Yeah, because the way I look at life.
Yeah. I love Brendan's comedy.
Yeah, my comedy. Yeah,
dude, he had me cracking up with the was it the Gino thing? I was like, oh
yeah.
God!
Oh, you think I'm funny when I talk like this? What are you out of your mind?
Shove it down your little pie hole. Like,
so Joe, I got it. Yeah, I got another question for you. So he's talking about like all this manifestation and magic and black magic, but like, do you think there could be some like good powers you can have? Because like Ram Dass, he would always say, you're going to gain these powers as your consciousness expands. You're going to get these powers, but you got to give them up. And he would talk about miracles. So he would talk about miracles and how sometimes a guru or somebody would perform a miracle because it was that final tap that somebody needed to crack the shell in their head or whatever. So, and then we see in that video the guy that starts fire with his hands and all stuff. Then he, allegedly got in trouble. But I think there could be a place for these miracles, but it has to be, I guess, like we were saying with the golden rule. And then also, you can't really be blowing people's minds because that kind of goes against the golden rule because you're kind of woke raping them at some point, right? You're showing them something that they're not ready to see. Like they're not Arjuna asking Krishna to see what the universe is. So you can't really perform a quote unquote miracle around everybody all the time, unless it's more of like a parable thing or something that like lines up with the folklore, that they could kind of get in with. But other than that, I think that miracles could be of some use. But then again, you got to go back to your ego. Or you're just performing miracles because you want to be the one that saves the world, Oh, really? You want to save the whole world? You want to save the world? Well, let me tell you something. The world is sacred. If you tamper with it, you'll ruin it.
All right.
That's the Tao, right?
Yeah. According to the Tao Te Ching.
Go, Joe.
Okay, you guys know who Ramana Maharshi was, right?
Yeah, Ramana Maharshi.
You say that name. I've never looked that person up, but I know, kind of got an idea for what.
He was an Indian guru. I don't know when he died in the 50s. It's a long time, but he had like a huge following across India, the world, really. And people would come and touch his feet and ask him to bless them and whatnot. And Hawkins calibrated him to be in the 700s, like way beyond enlightened. And he didn't really speak unless somebody asked him a question with a pure intention. But other than that, he didn't even speak. He just kind of looked at you sweetly. But anyway,
those
people
don't know.
Let me just interject really quick with the David R. Hawkins scale, just for people that aren't familiar with it. Basically, through kinesiology, there we go. He discovered a way to test consciousness, and he gave it a number of levels of consciousness from 1 to 1,000. And 200 is basically where truth is, and society can hover around there. But then some people who are a little more awoken to stuff are like a 4, 3, 500, and then a Christ consciousness is like 1,000, basically. Anyway,
not to be a Debbie Downer, but I guess since the Corona thing, allegedly people do this all around the world, and depending on somebody's consciousness, are they asking it with pure intention or not? But if you look at the kind of is a higher than average around the world, that it's dropped back into the 190s since the Corona thing. So we're plummeting. Not to be a Debbie Downer, but
no, that makes perfect sense though, because people have fallen for a lot of lies, and it's honesty, it's the truth, so a lot of people aren't following the truth, so it's going to go down. It doesn't have to be a scary or bad thing. It's just these people got to learn.
Because allegedly it jumped in 1986 it was 190 for allegedly like a millennium, and it jumped to like over 200 from 1986. It fell a little bit during the Iraq War kind of time, but it was still above 200, and then it allegedly fell again. But that's neither here or there.
No, that's interesting. That's good. A little gravy for people to sop up. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So All right. So anyway, the Ramana Maharshi, he was known that miracles would happen all the time. People would bring their kid that was crippled or something like that, and all of a sudden they could walk, and they're like, "Oh my God, it's a miracle!" But here's the thing: you got to understand, when somebody is at that level of consciousness, there is no more them. Like, so you're literally praying into God. Ramana Maharshi did not cause the miracle. God caused the miracle. Ramana Maharshi was a window for that energy. He
like
just sat. He was a body that sat there and smiled sweetly at people that could answer in words because he was still a human body. But people think you are going to be enlightened. You are not. Enlightenment is going to be when it's above the ego consciousness, and you see that we're all one. And so it's really hard for people to wrap their mind around it, because they immediately kind of look at it from an ego dualistic kind of linear kind of way. So Ramana Maharshi did not, and he would say this to people too who asked him, "Oh, you did that?" He's like, "I didn't do anything." He goes, "That person prayed. It was in my presence." And well, yes, but it's kind of going back to understanding, how black magic works. Not to say that, like I said, black magic, occultism, magic, whatever, that's an aversion of what actually happens. Somebody went up to the closest they could get to God, prayed to God. They put that intention into God. It manifested. Paranormal event. Boom. Miracle. Right. Like, so it's, and it goes back to what I was saying earlier. You always got to keep your eye on the prize, raising your consciousness, love thyself, love thy neighbor like thyself, love God with all your heart. Absolutely. No matter what, because as your consciousness raises, you're going to be able to manifest things quicker. Things are going to play out quicker. And if you get to a certain level, even before enlightenment, like in Hawkins' model, he said around 540, and as you're going up into the 500s before enlightenment, you're still of ego consciousness, but you're of a high or very high vibration. You're very nonlinear. You're like the between phase of enlightenment and humanness, and things are going to more rapidly, like start to manifest to the point where it looks like, oh my God, a miracle. Like, oh my God, I did the miracle, because you still have that ego consciousness sitting in there. Like, but it's not you. It's that energy that is vibrating, that you're attached to it, that is doing that. It's God doing that. You are not doing that. And it's very, right. But you got to always, that's why I said you always kind of keep your eye on the prize, not like getting sucked back into the ego, because then that's when you're going to wind up in trouble. Because and a lot of gurus have fallen. A lot of magicians, or like the white magic variety, or Freemasons, or any of these kind of occult kind of groups, they got to a certain point and then plummeted. Or in the case of like Freemasonry, that's another thing. They're literally using the quote unquote rules of magic and their collective consciousness to bring about the great work, no matter what that entails. The means justify the ends kind of thing. But they are connecting to a spirit that is beyond our ability to understand as humans, that is way above our heads, that and religions, they've called it Lucifer or whatever, but you could just think of it like this. It's just like I said earlier, like these energies that you're attached to, that say that all of a sudden I want a house, or I want this and this for that person, but you don't know what God's plan is for that person. Are you forcing your will upon them? Blah, blah, blah. Are you truly surrendering the situation to God? Or are you saying, I want this and that and whatever for this person, like, and you don't know what their lesson is, their dharma, the whole totality of the universe, like, because you're not God. And anytime you're trying to manifest out of that, like, things can go wrong. And there's always been a warning that that a lot of gurus did not take up, and they fell. Like that Osho guy would be a great example of a fallen guru, somebody who he rose to an extremely high level of consciousness began to take the credit for the things that were happening, declared himself higher than Jesus. I'm God, plummeted. And then like all this chaos and shit came about, from a whole cult formed around him. And there's like a whole story, but this has happened many, many times.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
That's the true test. It's like, that's Mara coming, like the Buddhist demon Mara. That's that battle that you have to have with Mara every single day, because it's just that aspect, that voice of yourself telling you, are you believing this stuff, man? This is you, man. Yeah, you're doing this, bro. You're killing it right now, like, and then you start to believe that shit. That's why I think a lot of politicians, it's the same thing. They start out meaning really well, and when they get to a certain point, they just
collapse,
plummet, right? They plummet, and then they're easily controlled by this force, which you said is like Lucifer, Satan, whatever, the dark force, but it's really just an internal thing. That's how they're connected. So it's not like you got to get anyone out there has to be worried about being possessed by a demon. These people, through their behavior, summoning these quote unquote demons or whatever, just the voices in their head that just keep getting crazier sometimes, it's like keep going deeper. But yeah, especially when you hit those, because this is the thing, when you're a normal average person, the voices could really hold you back and stuff, but the temptation I don't think is as great. But like when you become Tiger Woods and every woman is just getting naked and just being like, let's do this, I mean, like after a while it's tough on you. It's that same kind of stuff when you start to rise above. People that stick up in the society are worshipped, they're put on pedestals. So at that level, yeah, it's crazy. That's why I think some people stay at the level of consciousness where they're at too,
Yeah, this is how I see like a lot of rock stars earlier in their careers. They were like they had a brilliant muse. They're incredible musicians, and as they fell to the ego things of the fame, eventually they got to a point where they couldn't create anymore because they were in darkness now, and they're just like a meat robot functioning in really low energies, and they lost their connection to the muse. And then like the record company would give them songs if they wanted to keep juicing them, or they just would fall out from grace because they couldn't write good music anymore. Like
1,000%. Yeah, it's like why there's so many one-hit wonders, I think.
No, good point.
Because they make a genius song and they come up. That's why a lot of people that succeed and do really well come from families that have money, because they teach you how to deal with all this stuff when you're younger,
Yeah, that actually goes back to, I don't know if you wanted to talk about that today with the Queen and that kind of occultism, but pretty much a lot of people have, there are things in the occult where they talk about you can hack the matrix to reincarnate into your bloodline again. Like, and you can use astrology and by selective breeding, quote unquote, to continue to reincarnate it higher and higher in the realm from a materialistic point of view. Like you can become a quote unquote god of this realm by imagine if you lived for 2,000 years and the amount of accomplishments you can accomplish. Now, if you were able to reincarnate into the same line, theoretically 2,000 years, and I don't know to what degree you would keep your memories. My guess is you have a good amount.
Well, also
and,
it could be, you could have a book passed down that's like a freaking a diary, and then you could have all those experiences again, and you could remember, and you could just keep going, especially if you're raised from a young age to believe that too, because of it's passed down generationally. It could have been, this could be going on for thousands of years, yeah, like you said.
And you can see there are groups that tried to do this. The Nazis were the Dual Society. They tried to do it with the Aryan race. The Mormons are currently doing it. They are currently doing that. They even say it in their own fucking writings. For certain families that you call the Illuminati bloodlines, whatever, seem to be doing this. The most common example would be the Windsors, or that lineage, that royal blood. Why are they royal? Like, what is being passed down? Why are the Masons guarding them? They're like, so to speak. Yeah, allegedly, my theory is that that line is reincarnating Dracula, like the literal Dracula, like Vlad the Impaler. I'm kind of convinced that if this occultism is true, which it surely looks like it, Dracula is reincarnating down that line. Like,
I just have one point of contention there because from
Archaics.
Something I watched about Archaics. He thinks that like Vlad the Impaler was a good guy, but all that aside, I think the person they tried to say the real Vlad the Impaler was probably lived, and it was probably like Dracula though. And yeah, I totally agree with that. It's like the G.I. Joe. It reminds me of a G.I. Joe episode they made into a theme where they had this Cobra created this king, Cobra the enemy guys. Cobra, they create this king and they take all the DNA from like this pharaoh. They take the DNA from like Alexander the Great, all this stuff, and they make this one guy that's just like the most evil person. They might even took the DNA of Hitler back then. You could probably do that in the 80s. Yeah, I could just see that though. And this would be the real physical interpretation of what G.I. Joe was kind of like getting through the ether somehow, like the writers could have been just pulling this through the ether. But yeah, I think for sure, dude, I could see that happen. That's so crazy. And I think that's also where we get vampires from, the whole vampire story. It's the same kind of thing. Because if I watched a lot of the Blade movies, I was a huge fan. And they had these vampires that were natural born vampires and then ones that were just turned. There was this whole theme, right? So I think that that's just another way to represent in art what a certain amount of people are. There are vampires out there, but the way that they live forever is they just found a way to pass the consciousnesses down within their lineage, and then also kind of go around the veil of forgetfulness because they could raise this child in a way to believe all this stuff and then tell them who they were and just keep saying it to them. And yeah, just like they do with one of the forms of Buddhism, maybe it's I don't know, but anyway, they'll go get tulkus that way. Like if a child is born, like all the masters or whatever sit around and they just meditate on, and they'll get like a town and whatever, and they go to this house and there's a child there, and then they bring him back and give him tests and stuff. So it's not the only example of it, it happens all over really. So I think, dude, yeah, I think that's exactly what's going on. And this whole royal thing that's happened recently is a big part of it for sure. Cause like you said, you were saying, I remember to me, you were saying maybe even the group chat about how there's so much symbolism surrounding this funeral.
Yeah. It's, to me, it's, I don't know. Vlad the Impaler, good guy, bad guy. I'm not going to make a claim on that one. I'm not even going to make a claim if the queen was good or bad. It's beyond good or bad as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
It just is what it is.
Exactly.
It's,
everything is.
You're right. I apologize.
That the occultism is surrounding this, and that they do talk about this, and that especially with that bloodline, two things that the royals are known to really be obsessed with is astrology and blood. Like they're obsessed with blood, like to the point of inbreeding. Like they're really trying to control that. They're really, really get the best astrologers. It's not just the royals that sit on that line. There's a lot of these families, like you said, we're saying a lot of these like rock stars or whatever, or presidents or whatever, they come from bloodlines. They're slowly being set up to that incarnation where they have that power. Like there is something different about a lot of people who gain that kind of fame. Like there is kind of a deal with the devil going on, not the way you would understand in that cartoony kind of way, but to say, yeah, I'll carry on the will of whatever this energy is, and I'll let me keep reincarnating and coming back and gaining more material wealth or fame or whatever as time goes on. Because you see this around the world, a lot of it doesn't matter, like Germany, like here in Regensburg, there's like this bloodline has been in Regensburg for fucking ever, like at least 1,000 years, probably longer than that. In Greece, like Alex was, somebody that our friend knows that he knows is from a bloodline that has had a lot of power down there for a very, 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 very long time. Like and then you see a lot of what these people who gain like celebrity status, actors, Brad Pitt is a famous example, or like rock stars. These people, like they're not the same kind of incarnation as us. Like there's something different. Are they doing it to the degree of like the House of Windsor? No, but there are, like Fritz Springmeier was talking about the bloodlines of the Illuminati. Like there are certain bloodlines that are extremely obsessed with astrology and extremely obsessed with blood. And then there's been whole like movements like the Mormons or the Nazis that are doing the same kind of attempting to do this on a bigger scale to create the utopia by having the master kind of race kind of thing. Like,
dude, that's crazy. What do you think, Sharon?
So I'm just going to point out that we're past the 2-hour mark, just so you guys know.
Oh yeah, and also my meeting tonight canceled, so I don't have to rush off. But whenever it ends, yeah. But yeah, what was I going to say about that? That's just, that's what I was going to say. So there's some families like the Royals and the Rothschilds or whatever, all these elites that are doing it, but there's also kind of lower level. So they're like reincarnating into middle management, basically. Oh, good for you. It's so funny, right? But at the end of the day, they're just slaves to that way of living and the materialistic kind of lifestyle. Like they can't just go out and start their own podcast, you know what I mean? And like they could become comedians, I'm sure, and I'm sure they could start podcasts. But what I mean is they can't just like go out and truly be free. Like Sharon and I could talk about whatever we want as long as it's inside the YouTube parameters now. But no, we could literally just really talk about whatever we want, even put on Bitchute and stuff like that. So we're just out here having a great time living our lives. Some of us are falling in love. We're having a great experience. And these people are just like looking for the next dollar or the next, piece of control over people. Their lives have to be hell, It's crazy. Even though they're quote unquote in control. It's like, yeah, okay.
No, that kind of responsibility it's like you're going to start making decisions that are going to, like, you fart a certain direction, you send ripples through the whole world, and all this cause and effect plays out, and then you're trying to fix it again. Like it's just like, it seems like a nightmare to me.
Arranged marriages,
Could it be?
Yeah. So I don't know, man. It doesn't sound as free as we are. So I guess we got that going for it, which is nice. Is there anything else we did want to talk about?
I think we covered all the things we wanted to talk about. And we could always have Joe back on.
I'm going to see. I wrote some notes. Let me see if I got to them all. I think I did. Yeah, I think I did. Awesome. Miracles and blessings and Ram Dass. Yeah, we're good. All right. Well, thank you, Joe, so much. Unless there's anything else you want to add to the conversation.
Nah, I just kind of like, should we left off on that kind of down note? Like maybe the conspiracy theories, start there and then build to the more spiritual, happy messages later. Because I feel like we left on a down note. Yeah,
we could talk about something like that for sure. Actually something I did want to ask you that I remember that I can maybe have you explain here. We can end on that, which is cause and effect, because this is something you talk about on your show and the whole iron filings thing. And that's something that really piqued my interest. And I had to kind of look at it a few times to see exactly what you meant and all that stuff. But I really like what you're saying about that. So why don't you enlighten our audience a little bit about how you feel about cause and effect versus vibration or frequency?
Yeah, cause and effect is just time playing out, man. Time and structure, time and space playing out, the script playing out. But cause and effect is understood like by science or by almost everybody on the planet is an illusion. It's everything is playing out by consciousness, by a vibration, and by it's what's really happening is sequence based on like the totality of the entire universe, like everything that's happening and manifesting, all that potential becoming actualization. That's what cause and effect is. It's literally like the analogy. It is the iron filings moving into a pattern. But people look and think, oh, that because they're so close to it. Oh, that iron filing right there, that iron filing made that other iron filing move because he said something or whatever. Like, it's like that iron filing is making that iron filing over there move. But it's like, no, there's a animating spirit. Everything is spirit. Everything is consciousness, and everything is arranging based on the totality of everything forming a pattern. And then you look at the sequence and you say, oh, this caused that. But technically speaking, like the entire universe makes one thing. The entire universe is the cause and effect. Like, and just because you can, there's a certain pattern that keeps forming in a certain vibration, like a scientific experiment, for example, like the same variables in that same vibration are happening over and over. So the same thing happens over and over. And then we say, oh, that's cause and effect. That's is causing this. But it's bigger than that. And to see this, I don't know what to say other than that's what things like meditation and prayer and contemplation are for. It just keep the missile on the rule, the rules as Christ said, at the two highest rules, and ask for the truth. Because the same way as you can manifest a relationship or I don't know, a guitar or whatever, you can just as easily have the truth manifest. You can have that pattern show like manifest so that you can see this experientially. And that's about it.
Well, yeah, I like that. It's so true. I was writing about that, like getting in touch with your intuition through things like meditation. And also I spoke about raising your consciousness level and like different ways of doing it. And yeah, I think as you do that, you start to realize that it's more of, like you said, a spirit, an animating force, some kind of vibration that people get to. And that's really what affects their behavior, but they're kind of doing it to themselves too at the end of the day. But yeah, it's crazy.
And knock and you shall receive.
Yeah, exactly. Seek and you shall find. It's a warning though too. You better be ready for that truth.
Yeah.
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. Exactly. Just like that's like when you see a genie and you get 3 wishes,
Mm-hmm.
Most people are like, I want to be rich, and then they end up in some hell. But they're rich. Yep. Same thing. All right. Well, Sharon, did you have anything else you wanted to say? You good? Okay, cool. Well, I guess we could just say hi to our chat again. Hey, chat. How's it going? Thanks for hanging out so long. We really appreciate it. I know this was a real mind blower. So congratulations to you for watching the whole thing. And if you'd like to support us, go to morelawsmoreproblems.com, click on the Over Sharon tab. You can find out everything about this wonderful show, how to support us. But always the best way to support us is to just show up to these premieres that we have on Thursdays, and then live streams when we do them, and just hang out in the chat, and then also comment on stuff below. And if you like to listen to audio, we have a podcast. If you go to Over Sharon on More Laws, More Problems, you can find all about it. But we're on Podbean, Apple Music, or iTunes, or whatever you call it. All those fun places. And I think that's it. And then I guess I could say, what do we say to the good people, Sharon?
But if you're not oversharing,
then you're totally not caring.
That's right.
So keep sharing.
And share on.
Exactly. Bye, everybody.
Bye.